Today's lecture, I will start the management accounting, strategic management accounting process. To start the process, I just thought of discussing few data with you. You see, there are three products, A, B, Z total. Sales so much, cost of sales so much, operating profit, asset employees, return on assets. So I might ask, which product is the best? So which one is performing better? Which one is performing badly? So you may answer to certain question, but if you focus on this data set itself, you are not looking at the business from strategic point of view. This data set is internally generated. It has own limitation because this data is taken from financial statement. It has the weaknesses of financial statements. So when you say financial statements or the financial accounting or financial reporting, it is basically governed by conceptual framework and accounting standards. The conceptual framework and accounting standards are very, narrow focus set of guidelines. So it doesn't focus on much more outside. So always events and transactions, we try to quantify it in rupees in a faithful and representation, faithful and relevance way. But we are not really, brought in other qualitative characteristic or qualitative performance into the scene. So thereby, when you look at this kind of data and make decisions, you may use different kind of techniques and decisions, but that is not coming under strategic management accounting because your focus is much more narrow and internal. For example, when you look at the sales, sales is linked to the outsiders. We should know what the customers are doing, what the customers' expectations. Are we delivering the product or services which really expected by the customers, which are expected by the customers? Are we delivering their expectation, or just we deliver what we can? What is our price and what is competitors' price? Are there any other ways of doing producing our product? Can we simplify the production process? What competitors are doing? What others, are there any possibility of benchmarking a particular process, particular system with the best performer? So likewise, we need to always consider relate this data set to the external world. So then only you can really focus on more strategic management accounting or a focus or approach. So thereby, if you focus merely the internal data, that is not what we mean. Okay, right. Then coming back to our strategic management accounting process, what we do is you see that adoption of strategic management will involve the management account undertaking new tasks. So when you take strategic management accounting, it's a new task. So you can't be a traditional way of working. You can't do traditional. You have to be out of box. What are those? The definition of appropriate business unit for strategic planning. You have to define what your business unit is and what is the expectation of this particular business unit. Then analyze business unit and its competitors' cost in terms of value chain. We can't, why we are taking business units? Because when you identify your business units, maybe entertainment business, maybe, gas business, maybe, coffee production business, maybe garment, ready-made, maybe a restaurant. So you need to understand your business unit. Then only you can identify the competitors. When you try to understand your business as a group of company. So when you say a group of company, it has many businesses. So thereby very difficult to when you say Haley's, we can't identify the competitor for Haley's group. But within the Haley's group, if you have the plantation, IT, entertainment, export, import, technology, whatever the type of business unit, then you can easily identify your competitors. So thereby, analysis of a business unit and its competitors cost in terms of the value chain. So we have to understand the value chain. You have to basically input, process, output, that internal value chain. So you have to understand setting up and monitoring competitors' intelligence system. Likewise, government having a intelligent unit. We should have as a businessman, we should have a monitoring intelligence system or whatever the data collection and analysis about our competitors. We should know how competitors are performing, why they are performing in such a way, what are their approaches, what are their cost structures, how they manage, what are the improvement they have made to their existing activities, systems, processes, product, etc. So always understanding, getting information about competitors, what they are doing is much more important. Then provision of data related to market share, relative market share, and further market trends. So market share is, of course, you need to understand your market share. How do you calculate the market share? I think it's very clear. Do you know how to calculate the market share? Yes. Market share is basically your sales. Neither. Your sales, what do you do? Your sales divide by total industry sales, no? Industry sales multiplied by 100. That is market share. That means from the total cake, total industry, total market, what is your portion? Whether it is 10%, 20%, 5%, 100%. Then relative market share is little bit different. What we do is major competitors' market share, you divide it by your market share. Then you know where you are. You consider two market shares. You find out your major competitor, major market share holder, and you compare your market share with the major market share or the major competitor for you, not for others. Then we need to identify the future market trends, of course, that is okay. Integration of this information to strategic analysis process. You have to analyze. You have to integrate this, information, competitors' information to strategic analysis process. Then these tasks are collected into a clearly defined process which involves the 4 stages. These are the tasks. What are the tasks? You have to identify the business units. You have to analyze your business units and its competitors' cost structure to the value chain. Then you have to monitor the competitors. You should have a very good information system. Then you should have where you are. You should know where you are, your market share, etc. Then the integration of this information to strategic process. To perform these tasks, to implement these activities, so we have 4 stages. What are those 4 stages? Basically, without taking much time, 4 stages: strategic business unit identification. That is one, stage. strategic cost analysis, strategic market analysis, strategy evaluation. You see, we call it SBU. Strategic business unit means SBU identification. Cost, strategic cost analysis. Strategic cost here is not you are looking at your cost. You compare your cost structure with competitors, others. So that is the cost structure. Cost structure, better to have more comprehensive rather than classifying into 3 or 4 categories. If your cost structure has many items, or if your cost structure can be categorized into different activities, so that is the best thing. So information, more the merrier. So thereby, rather than having 3 items like direct material, direct labor, overheads, rather than that kind of very summarized nature classification, better to have a detailed, comprehensive cost analysis. Then strategic market analysis, the competitor's perspective, market trends, what is going on, customer expectations, all these are coming in strategic market analysis. Then we have to do the strategy evaluation, whether strategy evaluation is basically implementing and getting feedback. Okay, first of all, we will discuss the strategic business unit. Different sources of competitive advantages require strategies tailors made to fit their particular circumstances, direct competitors in different fields, optimize resource allocation among the different businesses. Defining SPU is a complex task. Various methods are available to assist strategic management accounting in this task. Okay. Different sources of competitive advantages. What do you mean by that? When you look at a strategic business unit, you should have the competitive advantage. Competitive advantage means in which areas you can perform better than the others. In which areas you can perform better than the others. That's called competitive advantage. There are different sources. You may have a, suppose you are you conduct a particular software development business, IT related software development organization. You develop softwares for different organizations, maybe hotel, maybe finance companies, maybe banking companies, maybe manufacturing companies, maybe service-oriented companies. You are producing, your task is to develop softwares for their operations. So in such a situation, one competitive advantage may be the expert you have, IT expert, we call it scientist. Or in other words, you may have a good marketing team skills. Likewise, there are different skills, different sources for you to have the competitive advantage. For certain cases, location may be another competitor. For a hotel, restaurant, location would be a very good thing. But for example, location for education, if your institute or the university is located in a major city, it is very easy to attract students for evening classes. So competitive advantage. I think you may have an idea about competitive advantage. You have to read the articles which I have uploaded, then you can get more knowledge. Require strategic tailor-made to fit their particular circumstances. So, we need to select appropriate strategies for appropriate SBUs. For certain businesses, cost leadership strategy or penetration strategy, market development strategy may be applicable. For certain cases, backward integration, forward integrations, different type of strategies may be applicable. So thereby require strategies to tailor-made to fit their particular strategy should match with the structure of the organization. Strategy should match with the size of the organization. Strategy should match with the nature of the business, market size, employees, capabilities, etc. Then the direct competitors in different fields. So when you have the uh, uh, business unit, you may identify direct competitors. Direct competitors means competitors which are directly not the indirect competitors, direct. For example, if you involve in retail supermarket channel, Keel's Super, if you assume that you do the strategic management accounting for Keel Super, then of course other retail, uh, other supermarket channels like Food City and the Cargills and the newly one Glomark and other Spa. Those things will be the direct uh, competitors. But small retail shops, this there are other indirect, I would say, competitors. Even optimize resource allocation among its different businesses. If you identify what we can do is business units, you can allocate resources for different businesses in a efficient, optimum way. Defining SBU is a complex task. It's not easy to define a SBU. You may define the SBU based on product or the ultimate what you really deliver by the product. For example, I can give one example. Canon, they produce the photocopier, for example, or the camera. When they define their business, photocopy business or photocopier, they produce the machines. They didn't define their SBU as photocopy manufacturers. They identify SBU as they are increasing the productivity of office. So they define their SBU not in a narrow technical way, but they look at the ultimate outcome of their product, ultimate benefit of their product. So thereby they look at the business unit from a broader perspective rather than looking at narrow perspective like photocopy. Like camera people, they didn't say that we are producing camera. They define SPU as we are preserving, we are contributing, we are helping to preserve sweet memories of the people. That's how they define. So thereby, likewise, business unit people or the business unit can be, defined in a different way, but it's a complex. We have to understand the customer nature of the business and define accordingly. Various methods are available as a strategic management account in this start. That means define this SPU. We'll see what others. Method to identify SPU. Arthur D. Little. Price does a change in pricing policy in one division affect the sales of another? That is another one question. According to Arthur D. Little, when you select a particular price, when you change a price, will it have an impact on others? Then of course you can consider it as SBU. Then competitors, do different division face common competitors? Do we have common competitors or separate competitor? That's another question. Customer group. Do different divisions serve common customer group? Shared experience. Do different divisions have or share similar research and development, manufacturing or functions? Then, of course, uh, if your price really does not have, pricing policy in one division affect the sales of another, then of course you can consider it as a SBU. Competitor. Do different divisions have face common competitors? If you have common competitors, of course, then you can consider it as a one SBU rather than dividing the SBUs. Likewise, Arthur D. Little raised different questions so as to identify the SBUs. Then Abel 1980, another guy, conventional two-dimensional concept of business unit determines the product and market. Customer group refers to the category of customer needs which are satisfied by SBU product or service. So what you can do is you can look at your business from customer group. Based on that, you can define the SBU. Second one is customer function, refers to the customer needs which are really satisfied the SBU product service function. The substitute technology refers to the method by which really account needs are satisfied, the method by which they perform for the customer. So that is another thing. Customers' needs are satisfied. So what we do is we can define. This is really the two-dimensional concept of business, that is the product and market. Here you may focus on customer needs, buy and product services. Here customer functions refers to the customer needs which are satisfied product, the function performance, and substitute technologies refers to a method that customer needs are satisfied. So by using these three methods, you can define according to Abel 1980. You can read this article even if you download this. We call it two-dimensional business concept. Two-dimensional means we take the customer and the product market, etc. I think this, if you look at the first one a little bit further, here you focus on customer groups refers to the category of customers of the needs. So you are trying to segment the customers and define according. For example, you may define the customer based on age. If you now for Panadol, what do you call paracetamol, the Panadol branch product, you may have a liquid for small children, and a different colored tablet for different next age group. But adults, you are just giving a tablet. So that's how you segment based on income, based on age, based on profession, or combination of these variable. You can categorize customer needs and identify. Other one is customer functions, refers to the customer needs satisfied. Functions, they perform for the customer. So what are the functions? Maybe frequent airline service, frequent flyers, and non-frequent flyers. Likewise. Substitute technologies refers to a method by which customer needs are satisfied based on technology, maybe manual, maybe auto, likewise the motor vehicle business, hybrid car, electricity car, likewise different technologies, likewise. So you can define business units in different way, but remember, what is important is whatever the way you are going to define your SBU, what is important is outside focus. As I told you, broader view. looking at the business from business unit from broader perspective. You are looking at the customer's perspective, not the production process you are looking, not the internal matters you are looking at. You are looking at outside even when defined the SBUs. That is how strategic management accounting focus. Then the task of strategic management accountant, the main task of the strategic management will be to collect data from marketing, production, other functions, including accounting, finance at a corporate level to determine the firm's SBUs. For example, this information will relate to target customer groups, technology employees, divisional units, and competitors and divisional pricing policy. So what is the role of accountant when defining the SBUs? So what you have to do is they have to collect, more marketing related, other, accounting related, finance related, different data from different sources they have to collect. Management accountant already use terms such as investment center, revenue center, profit center to describe operating units within different level of autonomy. What is required is the definition of SBU in terms of strategic investment center with full control over cost, revenue, and more importantly, strategy formulation. That is the point. Now, when you look at the task of management accountant, better to identify. Now we are talking about identification of SBU. You have to remember. When you try to identify the SBU, different authors have given, different scholars have given different guidelines to identify. But it is not simple task to identify SBUs. It's an art really. Identifying SBU is an art. But different authors focus on different segments. For example, the particular author, he raised a few questions. When price increase, what will happen to the other people? That's one question. If our price change, if others are affected, then our one is of course a SPU. Right? When gas increases, LAF increases its prices. So when the others are increasing, so SBU, LAF gas, we can consider as SBU. Strategy bill. Likewise, there are different ways of identifying SBUs. But here the point is, when you try to identify the SBUs, what is important is identify the SBUs like accountability centers. Accountability centers, we call it responsibility centers. There are three types of responsibility centers. Of course, you may have, revenue center, profit center, investment center. And new word is strategic investment center. When you say strategic investment center, the particular CEO or particular people in that unit or the unit itself having more autonomy. That's why it says here autonomy. Autonomy. Much more important, the autonomy. Autonomy is basically your ability to hear autonomy. Basically, the autonomy means your right to make decisions. You are empowered. You are given the authority. You are given the responsibility. You are given the resources. You are given the particular training. And you are given the particular infrastructure facilities so as to run the particular division in a competitive way. So thereby that's called strategic investment center, meaning that investment center, you are full control. You control the cost. You are responsible for the cost. and you are responsible for the revenue. Not only that, not only cost, not only revenue, but also for strategy development and strategy implementation. That means that particular unit is an independent unit from other units. That's the idea. So thereby the CEO or the people management there is much more independent, and they have their own way of doing. They can identify their own competitors. They can identify their own customers. They can identify their own market trends and customer needs. So thereby, objective of identifying SP is to identify the needs, the requirement of that SPU. So then only then, so when you identify the SPU, very easily you can direct that SPU. You can prepare a strategic plan. You can give a strategic orientation for that SPU if you identify the SPU very clearly. Now, for example, in universities, you can consider departments as SPUs. Very clear. Likewise, when you run a group of company or the business, there are different segments. Better to have SPUs, better to identify the SPUs, strategic business units. So when you are trying to identify the strategic business units, you are trying to make each unit much more independent, much more, given autonomy. Thereby, you can consider that particular unit as strategic investment center, meaning that that center should control their cost, should manage their revenue, and also should study and select, choice, implement, getting feedback, monitoring the strategy process. So thereby, that is the SPU. In that context, in that SPU context, the role of the management accountant we are looking at from strategic perspective. So thereby we are labeling it as strategic management accounting. I think that's clear. Next, strategic cost analysis. So far we discussed the first one. The first one is strategic identifying SBU. Second one is strategic cost analysis. When you take strategic, this is called a strategic cost management, strategic cost analysis. Another name is strategic cost management. So when you do that, of course, what is important is strategic positioning analysis. Strategic positioning means what kind of things, what a kind of strategy we are going to focus. Second one is cost driver analysis. Cost driver means reasons for incurring cost. What activities, what drivers, what drive cost we are trying to understand, but in the context of value chain analysis. So value chain is important. Value chain means the process, input, output, process. When you go to a garment, there is a value chain. If you focus on the organization itself, there is a value chain. You get the raw material, you cut it, you have the design. According to design, you cut it, then you collect it, then you assemble it, then you pack it, and ultimately you get it to the customer. So value chain analysis is much more important. So when you do the strategic cost analysis, you need to focus on these things. Then only you can manage the what do you call cost. Okay, strategic positioning, of course, strategic cost positioning. You may say that, okay, my strategic cost is so much. I think you can remember the first session what we did. Target costing. Target costing was 555. Our costing was, I think, 900 or 600 or something. So what we did was we reduced it to 555. our target costing. So that is the strategic cost position. So you need to understand strategic cost position. Maybe the lowest cost producer, maybe the strategic cost position. Then the strategic cost position of competitors. What is the position of competitors? How they really reach their cost? What activities they perform? What systems they adopted to reach their cost structure, their cost level? Strategic cost analysis uses the value chain to highlight the behavior of an SPU cost by identifying firms' strategically relevant activities. The term value chain and cost driver are described below in relation to assessing strategic cost position of an SPU. I think you are familiar with value chain. I gave you one example. The process incurred, process taken place in your organization. So you can consider as your value chain for the purpose of analyzing cost. Cost drivers is the reasons for incurring a particular cost. Here, this is the value chain, of course, produced by Michael Porter value chain. You know, when you uh, run a particular business, of course, you have primary activities, inbound logistic operation, outbound logistic marketing and sales services, something like that. Inbound logistics, the process you undertake, you get, raw materials, you supplied. Maybe certain cases you may have, if you have backward integrations, your raw materials, inbound logistics supplied by another SPU. Then the operations. This is much more important. The operations, activities taken place in the business organization. Then the outbound logistics, marketing, advertising, services, etc. But all these primary activities are taken place in a supporting activities. Firm's infrastructure, firm should have the infrastructure, maybe IT support, maybe some raw material support, maybe some, network. In firm infrastructure is much more important. Supply network, bank facilities, etc. Then the human resource management. You need to continually develop your human resources. Development, without developing human resources, I don't think that you can achieve the target of value. Then the technology development and also procurement. So you can't have inbound logistic without procurement. So there are, according to Michael Porter, there are, of course, 9 activities. Out of these 9 activities, 5 are basically primary. The 4 are infrastructure. That's the value chain. Then the cost analysis, this disaggregation should reflect 3 principles. What are those 3 principles? Cost analysis. The size and growth of the cost represented by the activity, cost behavior of the activity, compared to difference in performing the activity. That is also another thing. Size and growth of the cost represented by the activity. So when you look at different activities, it indicates size and the growth. For example, you may have different activities, purchasing, inspection, quality assurance, assembling, cutting, different kind of setup, setting, machine setting activity. Likewise, so size and growth of cost represented by the activity. The cost behavior of the activity, compare difference in performing activity. So based on that, you can disaggregate. Disaggregate කියලා කියන්නේ මෙතන මේ summary විදියට තියන්නේ නැතුව in details cost analysis කරන එක තමයි එතන කියන්නේ. Factors driving cost, for example, economic and diseconomies of scale, learning spillover, pattern capitalization, linkage, interrelationship, integration, timing, discretionary policies, institutional factors, and locations. Scale can affect either favorably or adversely cost performing a value activity. Economies and diseconomies of scales. When you produce more and more, you get the economies of scales. So thereby your cost can be reduced. You know, Learning and spillover. The cost of performing value act can be declined as a result of accumulated experience. When you learn, when you do the same task, efficiency can be increased. So thereby you can adopt certain shortcut method to work in a better way. So thereby learning will help you to improve your performance. Learning will help you to reduce the time taken you know to perform a particular task. Pattern and capacity utilization. Value activities are vulnerable to cost penalties on the utilization where fixed costs are high. Pattern of capacity utilization. Certain activities needs to incur certain fixed cost, but even though your production or the capacity reduce, the cost remains same. For example, rent. If you have a rent out a particular land, particular building, whether you perform or not, you have to pay the rent. Whether you produce 10 items or store 10 items or whatever the capacity used in that particular asset, you have to pay the cost. So thereby, it's another kind of value driver. So thereby, you see here the pattern of capacity utilization uh, is much more important. So in such situation, what you have to do is higher the turnover, better the position. Higher the turnover, better the position when the pattern of capitalization. Now, when you think this particular scenario, very simple example, uh, think about the public transport. Why these people are putting more passengers to one bus? One route, say from Peta to Maharagama, bus, they tend to put more passengers, more people inside the bus. Why? Because you see, from Peta to Maharagama, diesel cost is fixed. Whether your bus operate empty or not, with full of passengers, the diesel cost fixed. So thereby what you have to do to get the maximum benefit, you need to put much more passengers. Thereby what happened? Unit fixed cost, per unit fixed cost will be reduced. Linkages with value activities, supplier channels, and can low cost linked activities. So certain activities, there are linkages with value activities and suppliers channels can lower the cost linked activities. Then interrelationship, sharing resources, knowledge with sister SBU can reduce the cost of interrelated uh, related units. So thereby interrelationship is important. Here the linkage, certain costs are variable. So when the variable cost, when certain item, when you produce more and more, your cost going up. So that's the link. Interrelationship means SBU1 may provide a certain item to SBU2. So thereby SBU2 is buying from SBU1. Simple example, you have a plastic manufacturing business and you have a yogurt manufacturing business. If yogurt business can be considered as SBU, right? But you buy cups or whatever the packaging material from the SBU1. So thereby the interrelationship may help you to if you buy all your requirement from SBU1, then they tend to produce more and more items, thereby cost will be reduced. That is one interrelationship. On the other hand, if SBU1 improves, SBU1 improves their production process, their operation. What happened? Unit cost of plastic cup will be reduced. So that relationship, they will get the benefit, that achievement really indirectly benefited by the SBU2. That is the interrelationship. Integration. Vertical integration may reduce cost of activities, lead to economies of joint operation. De-integration of existing can lower cost if they can perform cheaper outside the organization. So vertical integrations may be backward and forward integration. Backward means, of course, you are acquiring suppliers. Now, I think Cargill's, they have their own, farm field. They have all their cultivation. So they get all vegetables and all that from their business. That's called backward integration. And on the other hand, forward integration means if you distribute your product yourself. For example, if you look at the pizza, so they have their own way of distributing. Bicycle man, not they get the service from other uh, other distributor, but they have their own way of distributing. That's called forward integration. Okay. So anyway, vertical integrations may reduce cost activities in certain cases. If you acquire the suppliers, you may reduce the cost. That means you are expanding your value chain. Earlier, you purchased from raw material from the supplier. Now you are not getting it from outside. You have acquired the suppliers, and now you have expanded your value chain. So thereby, cost can be reduced. In certain cases, what happened is de-integration. De-integration means you are not buying from your own because someone is producing at a lower cost. So thereby, rather than doing backward integration, you may sell your backward operation or backward other business unit, and you might get it from outside supplier. So that may be cost reduction. That's called de-integrations. Timing advantages may be gained by adopting first mover follower strategy. Timing. Better to be first mover means you are moving the first time. You are the first guy. Introduce that particular. I think, for example, Uber. They introduced that Uber network. So it was a kind of first mover. I think long time back, Sampat Bank introduced the ATM machine. First time to the country, ATM machine technology. Of course, ATM is a little bit outdated now, but they are the first movers. First movers means you enter into the business or the segment or the market first time by taking risk. That's called first mover. Follower strategy means you look at what happened to that first mover. We are following that. That is called follower. First movers are taking the risk. In certain cases, we need to be a first mover. In certain businesses, we need to be a follower. So you may adopt both strategies, which I don't know. But timing is important. Certain cases, if you don't have much more capacity, better to wait and see principle. Wait and see. Discretionary policies, explicit and implicit policies choices independent of other drivers can affect cost. Certain cases, without having implicit and explicit policies independent of other drivers. You may, think about having a very aggressive advertising campaign, promotional campaign, maybe some donation, maybe some CRS, corporate social responsibility program, something like that. Okay. Institutional factor, government and union regulators have an effect on cost, of course, yes. Government may force certain rules. For example, budget, from the budget, they are proposing budget allowances for employees. So thereby, I think now budget allowance is 500 rupees or 7,800. Each organization should provide that budget allowance. It's a compulsory requirement. So thereby, whether we like or not, we need to increase, we need to give that allowance for our employees. Union regulations may have impact on cost. They might fight for salary increase, quality matters. They might talk about customer requirements, etc. Locations. The choice of location can affect labor, material, and transport. Or location is also a matter. In earlier cases, we talk about better to locate the any business to the market. වෙළඳ පොළට කිට්ටු වෙලා මේ වෙන්න ඕන කියන කතාව. Locations නේ. වරායට ආසන්න දැන් ඔබ දන්නවා ඇති හම්බන්තොට වරාය චීනය විසින් අපි කිව්වොත් ඉන්වෙස්ට්මන්ට් කියලා ඉන්වෙස්ට්මන්ට් කරාම ඒ අවට ඉඩම් ඔක්කොම ඒගොල්ලෝ ඉල්ලනවා. ඒ ඉල්ලන්නේ ඒ හාබ් එකත් එක්ක බැඳිච්ච ට්‍රාන්ස්පෝර්ටේෂන් අඩු පිරිවැයකින් කරන්න පුළුවන් විදිහට කර්මාන්ත කරන්න පුළුවන්. ඒවා හදලා ටක් ගාලා ඊට පස්සේ හැදුවට පස්සේ ආයි එක්ස්පෝර්ට් කරන්න පුළුවන්. රෝ මැටීරියල් මෙහාට ලේසියෙන් ඒ කර්මාන්ත ශාලාවලට දාන්න පුළුවන්. ඊට අමතරව ඉන්නේ හදන ඒවා ඉමීඩියට්ලි පැක් කරලා export කරන්න අඩු cost එකකින් කරන්න පුළුවන්. Location have a impact on that. So I think you got this cost drivers basically economies, learning spillover, pattern of capacity utilization, linkages, example variable cost, interrelationship, integrations, timing, discretionary policies, institutional factors, and locations. So that's about, I think, the cost analysis. Then what we will do is we will focus on another thing that is qualifying effect of these cost drivers upon the quality of an SBU output can be achieved using the following 4 stages. So even though this there are cost drivers, the reasons for incurring cost, quality of an SBU output can be achieved. So if you want, manage the quality of your outputs, you can achieve it by using the following 4 stages. One is prevention. Second one is appraisal. Third one is internal failure. Fourth one is external. Prevention means quantifying the cost of preventing poor quality. Quantifying the cost of preventing poor quality. Prevention. Appraisal. Quantifying the cost of employing system to monitor quality level. Internal failure. Quantifying the cost of remedying mistakes as a result of bad quality before good pass from an SBU to the buyer. External failure. Quantifying the cost of rectifying mistakes after goods have been passed on to the buyer. So thereby, you see that there are 4 stages: prevention cost, appraisal cost, internal failure cost, external failure cost. So what you have to use is, if you use these 4 stages, you can manage the output of this. You try to quantify the cost of preventing poor quality. Again, අපි වළක්වන්න යන පිරිවැය අපි හදා කීයද කියලා බලන්න. Appraisal cost එක කීයද කියලා බලන්න. ඒ කියන්නේ quality measure කරන්න අපි එක එක තැන්වලදී quality check කරනවානේ අන්න ඒවට යනවා. internal failure අපි බඩු හදලා බඩු එළියට ආවට පස්සේ ඒ වැරදි වෙච්ච බඩු මොනවද ඒව නැවත මේවා කරන්න කොච්චර පිළිවෙලක් යනවද. external failure means quantifying the cost of rectifying mistakes after the වැරදි බඩුවක් කස්ටමර්ට ගියාම ඒකෙන් ඇති වෙන ඉම්පැක්ට් එක ඒ කොස්ට් එක කොච්චරද කියන එක තමයි external failure කියලා කියන්නේ. Okay, strategic cost analysis is a complex process and is not without its difficulties. Identify value activities, cost accumulation at the responsibility center level is unlikely to represent the cost of value activities. That is one thing. Identify value activities, cost accumulation at the responsibility center level is unlikely to represent the cost value of activities. Product cost, traditional costing system do not associate non-manufacturing cost with product. Value chain linkage accounting system treat different activities in isolation and are unlikely to collect information related to coordinating different activities. Cost driver identification, external costing system do not identify, quantify SP cost drivers. Okay, strategic cost analysis is not an easy task. You need to identify the value activities and you need cost accumulations at the responsibility center level is unlikely to represent the cost of value activities. So thereby, identifying value activities and categorizing cost accordingly is the requirement. Second one, product cost, traditional costing system do not necessarily associate non-manufacturing cost with product. That is other question. Product cost, traditional costing system. You know that in financial accounting, what we did was we just wanted to calculate the cost of sales. We just wanted to identify the manufacturing cost. We didn't worry about the non-manufacturing overheads because non-manufacturing overheads or the non-manufacturing cost we treated as the period cost. Like a P&L item. That view itself providing a narrow focus. Because there may be many huge amount of unnecessary overhead in non-manufacturing cost, which we didn't put any attention. We put attention only to the manufacturing cost. So thereby traditional product costing is not longer helpful for you to do the strategic cost analysis. So thereby, first point is collecting cost at one center wise, no help. Center wise cost is you look at the center wise, you don't get the complete picture. So thereby better to have the cost like a process, full cost, full series of cost to complete the particular project, particular activity is essential. Second point is traditional costing is not helpful. Third one is value chain linkage accounting system treat different activities in isolation, are unlikely to collect information related to coordinating different activities. Cost driver identification, external costing system do not identify and quantify SBU cost drive. So those are the challenges, difficulties of strategic cost analysis. Determine relative competitor cost position. Relative competitor cost position, competitor intelligence system, competitors' future goals, competitors' assumptions, competitors' current strategy, competitors' capability, etc. So you should know the competitor cost position. Otherwise, difficult for you to survive, get the competitive advantage. What are the areas you have to focus on? What are their goals, future goals? What are competitors' assumptions about the market? assumptions about the suppliers, assumptions about the expectation of the customers, assumptions about the economy, assumptions about the country, nature, assumptions about the, whatever the things, computers assumptions in different areas, but we can't have all the assumptions, but major areas, the customers, market assumptions, etc. Then the competitors, what are their current strategies? What are their capabilities? So when you identify those things easily, you know where you play. Otherwise, when you play in a playground, like football, you always should know what others, opponents are doing. What is their strategy? What are their capabilities? What are their assumptions? What are their future plans? Then that is something like that. I can remember one match, football match. That Francis a coach here, their strategy was not to make a goal, but to really, make harder the opponent. ඉනිසා නිතරම ෆුට්බෝල් වලදී ඒගොල්ලා නිතරම අනිත් players ලා වට්ටනේවා ඒගොල්ලන්ට පොඩි මහන්සි වීම කරන එක තමයි කරන්නේ. So that is a kind of strategy. මං හිතන්නේ රග වෙලත් ඒක වෙනවා. නිතරම ඇඟේ වැටෙනවා පොර කනවා. එතකොට it's a kind of strategy. Anyway, you need to understand the computers but this is not easy. You should have a mechanism, you should have a system in your organization to get information about the computer's position, right? Just to convince you, intelligent data, potential sources of computer intelligence data. So where you can get the data. I don't think that the computers itself, by visiting your competitor, you can get the information. But you need to look at different sources and you have to analyze. You have to look at those sources in a critical way. What are those? You can talk to customers, their customers. Have a discussion, have a survey about, and you can talk to their sales force or our sales force. Our sales force really basically have different, our business salesmen, they have the contact with the agent, customers, competitors, suppliers. So thereby sales force is one source of information. Common suppliers, personnel hired from experts, you can hire. Competitors itself, their interviews, their press conferences, their annual reports, their, when they making speeches as different technical or academic conferences, their voices, YouTube channels, of course, industry journals, of course, advertising agencies, trade exhibitions, security analysis, competitors' product, promotional literature, management periodicals, newspaper articles, annual reports, government reports, and scanners. Those are the sources of intelligent data. I think that's no need of explaining it. This is a given list example, but you can develop many items as the list when you know other information. Then we will come to the strategic market analysis. I think again, I just want to remind you what we are doing. What we do is basically we are studying these 4 areas of strategic management process. We talk about strategic business unit identification. We discuss the strategic cost analysis. Now we are trying to talk about strategic market analysis. That's where we are. Okay. Strategic market analysis. Strategic market analysis, of course, you see the stages of the product life cycle. The stages of the product life cycle. Annual market share. Market share related to major competitors, or relative market share. The strategic market analysis begs the question, how do we define our market? An economic market and strategic market. Market segment and related set of consumers with homogeneous taste and facing similar conditions and playing uniform price homogeneous product. The opposite word is heterogeneous. Homogeneous means similar. A strategic market is the smallest area of market or markets in which it is viable to compete. So that's a strategic market analysis. The stages of product life cycle is much more important, where we are. For example, I think you are familiar with this life cycle. For example, you may have this product life cycle, something like this. Yeah, right. This is something like, you see. So you may call this is as introduction, this as growth, this as maturity, this as the decline. So this is the introduction, this is the growth, this is the maturity, this is the decline. We label this as sales. So thereby, what you have to do is initially, when you do this, stages of product life cycle is important. That's your strategic market. Where we are. Are we in the introduction stage? Are we in the growth stage? Are we in the maturity stage? Are we in the decline stage? So what is our product life cycle? That is important. Okay. So based on that, you can select appropriate skill. I think these matters will be discussed in details in relevant chapters, relevant sessions when you discuss detailed components of this strategic management process by respective lecturers. So then actual market share, what is your share? What is from the, if you consider the market share is 100%, from that 100%, what is your portion, whether is it 5%, 10%, 50%, 60%, 90% or whatever. Then the market share related to major competitors, where we are in relation to our major competitor. Are we below, are we above them, something like that. Then we need to define our market, what kind of expectation we are delivering, what is the nature of the market. An economic market and strategic market. I think we better to focus on the strategic market. Economic market means like something mass market. Mass market means you are not segmenting market. You produce a general product like general purpose financial statement. There is one product for everyone. ඔබට මතක ඇති Ford කිව්වා මේක ඉස්සර Ford car හදන කාලේ. As long as black, you can buy a black car. That's market, economic market. As long as you like black car, you can buy a car. If you don't like black, no car for you. Meaning, everyone, for everyone, we produce black car. If you don't like the black color, very sorry, we don't have a car. Strategic market means not like that. We focus on individual customer requirement. Nowadays, you tell, nowadays, of course, not possible. You tell the Toyota the color you need. Of course, they produce the car for you. There's no problem. Whatever the attributes, whatever the the features you want, you tell them, so they will inbuild. That is, that is a unique product they are producing. That's the thing. Therefore, to do this strategic marketing, to conduct a strategic way of business, what is required is you need to segment, group in the people, group in the customer. Market segment is required. So when you say, when you divide the market into segments, we assume that they have homogeneous taste, similar requirement, or similar expectation. For example, when you divide the male and female, so it's a kind of segmentation, but that segmentation is not appropriate when you are giving a particular lunch or the meal for them. Then another segmentation is required. I think you got my point. Anyway, to do the market segment or the strategic market, you need to do the market segmentation based on, different variables, maybe income, maybe preference, maybe, age. By using or combination of all these, you can have a group. A strategic market is the smallest area of a market, and markets smallest area. කඩන්න පුළුවන් කුඩාම කොටස හඳුනා ගන්නවා අපි. එක්කෙනෙකුට වෙන්න පුළුවන් අපි ඒක හඳුනා ගන්න. මේ මාකට් එකේ 3 දෙනෙක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. මේ මාකට් එකේ 100ක්. The Hamidias is a kind of strategic market. They have their own professionals, high income, passionable people, no, for them. That not like some other ready-made garment sellers. So they have focus. Then it is very easy to focus them. But when you say economic market, on the other hand, not the strategic market, when you use the economic market, you may very easy for you to focus on cost leadership strategy. But here, when you do the market strategy or the strategic marketing, of course, you focus on much more the product differentiation strategy. I think that's about it. It's okay. Shall I? Yeah. Yes. Okay. Then we'll go to the next one, the final one, strategy evaluation. Of course, strategy evaluation is the evaluation all the strategic management account and combining information collected during the strategic cost analysis and strategic market analysis stages to facilitate the selection of optimum strategies. So what you do is basically you collect information from outside, that is market, by performing the market analysis, and also you collect information cost data, and you will now evaluate the strategy, which strategies are suitable, strategic management accounting and shareholder value analysis. Next one. So the process is over with that. So strategic evaluation, so you will realize for the strategic management accountant, he or she needs more information about what is happening, what is the cost structure, not the cost structure in relation to yourself, your business only, cost structure in relation to the competitors, and also the product requirement in relation to customer requirement, in relation to particular segment requirements. So thereby now you have much more complete picture, complete set of information, especially focus on external orientation. So thereby you can select, you will decide what methods, what strategies, what techniques are suitable to get the competitive advantage, what techniques are suitable to be competitive and to have the growth or business value or the value creation. So that's the strategic evaluation. Then next what we do is basically we will discuss a little bit about strategy management, shareholder value analysis. Of course, a strategic management account can help link strategy with shareholder value analysis, which seeks to maximize return to shareholders. What happened? Oh, yes, the last one, no? Okay. Here, of course, what I'm focusing is that strategic management, accounting, and shareholder value analysis. What is shareholder value analysis? What is strategic management accounting? Is you need to be very clear. Strategy management can help link strategy with the stake shareholder value analysis, which seeks to maximize return to shareholders. Now, what do you mean by shareholder value analysis? Shareholder value analysis. Shareholder value analysis means, shareholder, first of all, what is shareholder value? Shareholder value is basically value of the business from shareholders' perspective. If you look at the financial statement, the balance sheet, financial position, the balance sheet, if you look at balance sheet, of course, where do you get the shareholder value? Shareholder value, where do you get? You just look at the equity. Value of the equity is the shareholder value. There's no argument. But you know that due to certain limitation in financial accounting, that shareholder value is not equal to market capitalization. Meaning, equity value, share value per book. How do you get the share value per book? Value per share based on the book. You just find out the value of the equity, divide by number of shares, you get the value per share based on the book value. Equity divided by number of shares. That's very simple. If you want to get the value per share based on market price, you go to the Colombo Stock Exchange and find out the price. That is the market value or the shareholder value. When you multiply that by with number of shares, the market price multiplied by the number of shares, we call it market capitalization, you get the value of the business from shareholders' perspective, shareholder value. The thing is that what drive or the strategic management can also link strategy with shareholder value analysis. What do you mean by? When you look at the shareholder value, so it will influence by many factors. For example, cost of capital is a value driver. Revenue, cost, all these are value drivers. Taxation, value drivers. You can have different values, or when you try to predict the when you try to calculate the cash flow, you get different items. You get what? You get sales, the income. It's a value driver. You get that operating cost, value driver. Then you get the net cash flow. Net cash flow you really discounted by cost of capital. Then you get the net present value. That is the value of the business or value of the project. So thereby, there are different value drivers. Maybe variable cost is a value driver. Fixed cost is a value driver. Activity cost, value driver. So thereby, in addition to those value drivers, right, or the shareholder value analysis, what I'm trying to say here is that management accounting is a kind of value creator. That is why we call it strategic management accounting. By adopting strategic management accounting or by adopting strategic management accounting technology, we are in a position to help shareholders to create value, to increase the value. So thereby, strategic management accountant is in the center, or he is in the process of managing the business in a strategic way. He is a partner in your strategic management process. He is a partner in the strategic management or the managing a business process. When managing a business, he is in the process. He is in there. He is with you. That is the meaning of strategic management accounting and shareholder value analysis. So I think with this, it is time for us to sum up the lecture. Basically, we talk about, this is the last lecture summary. I think at the beginning I highlighted it. But today what we did was we started this and we said that, okay, this is internal focus, this data. By looking at this data, not enough. You need to have a, external orientation. Look outside. Look what is happening outside. Thereby, what is important is competitors and customers, market and the competitors. Market means customers, competitors is the other story. So you have to look at always your data should relate. Your data, internal business data should relate to outside. That is called strategic orientation or external orientation, right? Then the strategic management process, of course, we understand, we divide into 4 stages. But if you look at different texts, they might present this process in a different way, but they are talking the same thing by using a way. Uh, Strategic management accounting process, strategic management unit identification, we call it SPU. Strategic cost analysis. Cost analysis is not internal. You have to do the cost analysis in relation to competitors, cost structure. Then the strategic market analysis, you are understanding what is happening in the market, who are playing in the playground, what are their characteristics and what are their targets, etc. And finally, you combine these information and select appropriate strategy so as to match with your organization and try to ensure the survival and growth of the business by creating value for you. So ultimate objective of strategic management accounting is to create value. Create value means 2 things. You have to understand. Create value means 2 things finally. One is you are delivering a product or service which is suitable for your customer. You are producing items or product services which are matching with your customer requirement. That is number 1. Second one is you need to develop or improve continuously. You need to develop and improve continuously the activities, the resources you have, the processes you have, and systems you have. That's one side, you are trying to satisfy the customer. Other side, you are trying to improve yourself. Yourself means your organization. That means you are not accepting the way you did yesterday. That's why you are developing and improving systems. And you are developing processes. And also you are developing and improving resources. For example, human resources. You train employees. You send them for training. And you ask them to come up with new ideas. So you are developing your employees. So without that, very difficult for you to survive. So strategic management accounting will help or contributes to this. That's why we call it strategic management accounting. So thereby, to deliver the appropriate product, to identify the customer, you need data. You need data. I think a classic example is you need to classify the cost, prevention, internal failure, external failure. I think 4 categories. So that's important. On the other hand, while you collect data to develop, to design, to improve your existing product and services, you need to improve the internal business process or internal systems. So yourself should develop. For that, you may use different techniques, benchmarking, the balance scorecard, performance measurements, target costing, what do you call zero-based budgeting, different kind of things. You may introduce different management techniques, what we discussed in the first session. So thereby, so strategic management accounting process is a kind of thing. It's a mechanism. It helps you to develop. It generate information so as to so as to improve or to create value of your business. So with this, I would like to conclude today's session. Of course, this is the third session.